So I want to welcome you to our webinar. My name is Jan Lehman. I'm the owner and CEO of CTC Productivity, and we have a number of team members on the call today. Bruce is going to be covering our topic today. Arnie's on the line and Joe's on the line, so always fun to have the team together. And the goal with our webinars, we try to cover content in the first 30 minutes roughly of the session, and then we open it up for Q&A. So if you have questions, feel free at any point to start entering them into the chat, and we're happy to answer them during the Q&A session. And I'm going to speak to the elephant in the room. A lot of people wonder why the heck we use Zoom for Microsoft 365 webinars. But the answer to that is a lot of our people attending our webinars are on Google, and we do not want them to be a speed bump or any issues with them joining us. So if your grandma can get on Zoom, we know everybody can get on Zoom. So although I will say we've been trying a new feature where I'm doing this overlay where you can see our faces. And I learned recently that with Zoom, when you do this, when you get the recording, the overlay is not there, but on Teams, you can still see the image. So we might be switching over to Teams soon. So anyway, our topic today is about Microsoft Task Management, what's changing, and Bruce is going to be covering this, and I'm really excited. I know I'm going to learn a ton because there's a lot going on with Microsoft Teams, with Microsoft Task Management tools. And Bruce, I don't remember, I think you were the one that said this. Did you tell me that Microsoft, of course, is putting a lot of money into Copilot, Microsoft's AI tool, but then right after that, they're putting a ton of money into their task tools? Did you tell me that, or somewhere along the way I heard that?
Yeah, they continue to really spend some time and effort on moving task management forward. So,
Yeah.
yep, for
Yeah,
sure.
awesome. So we have a lot to learn today, I'm sure. So the topic today is going to be the task management. And then next month, and I'm going to enter some links into chat. So let me get those in there. In May, perfect. So I just entered a bunch of links in the chat. In May, our topic is actually going to be something, it sounds kind of niche. It's actually, if you're familiar with EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, 90IO is a third-party piece of software a lot of companies use when they're running on EOS. Now, those of you that have been working with us or kind of following us for a while, you know that we actually build out an EOS solution in our Microsoft 365 environment, or I should say in our client's Microsoft 365 environment. So you don't need third-party software. But if you're using third-party software to run EOS like 90IO, Bloom Growth, EOS One, any of those, this would be an interesting topic for you because it's about really how to still bring in that piece of software into the team's environment to at least try to streamline workflow with the rest of your Microsoft 365 suite. And Arnie, I don't know if you're on the call or not, but I'm going to guess there's probably a lot for people to learn, even if they're not on EOS and not using any of this software. Wouldn't that be true, Arnie, that the session in
Right,
May,
yeah.
some
Yeah,
nuggets to
90
learn?
incorporating the third-party tools will just be part of it. There'll be a lot more on how to manage holistically with teams.
Perfect. Awesome. That's going to be another great one. So perfect. So the chat, so in chat, I entered the link that you can register for that webinar. Even if you're not available on May 13th, go ahead and sign up because we'll send you the recording. You can also get a link to our past recordings, our YouTube channel, lots of different things. And included in the links is a link to the case study, which I'm about ready to cover as well. So lots of good information there. So we always start off explaining that, we don't tell clients just to use tech for the sake of tech, right? It's always got to be about what's a business issue that you're trying to solve. And so when we're working with companies, whenever we see any of these issues or challenges, we know that there's something in the Microsoft suite that you should be looking at. And today, accountability is really the key piece that we want to pull out here. We've noticed going into the pandemic that a lot of our clients realized that they were managing by walking around. And if their employees were sitting in front of their desk, they assumed they were productive. And now in a hybrid remote environment, see, Beth, that's perfect. You nodded your head, so I know you're listening and it made sense. Thank you. She's like the one person with the camera on. So thank you. But now that you can't see your employees, a lot of managers are like, how do I know these people are productive? And my personal opinion is if you can't trust somebody working remotely, you probably shouldn't have trusted them in the office. It's really a work ethic issue. But there's no question there's been a huge insurgence of accountability tools, task management tools to help, because we now need to have a better understanding of what people should be getting done. And we shouldn't really care, quite honestly, when they're working, where they're working. If they have 10 things to get done and they're getting them done and you can track it well, then you should be happy. So, but any of these issues and challenges should tell you there's something in Microsoft 365 you want to explore. Coming in post-pandemic, we definitely are continuing to see a mix of a lot of hybrid work environments, remote environments. Even the offices that are fully back in office, you should be leveraging Microsoft 365. Inevitably, you will have a parent that didn't plan to work from home and they have a sick kid and they now need to stay home and work from home. So having the flexibility to get to everything on your phone is super easy and seamless with Microsoft 365. I'm going to cover a case study. So we always love to do this. And Joyce is actually on the call, which is super fun. And so this is a case study that we did recently for one of our amazing clients. So Joyce and her company, they're with BDH. They're an interior and architectural firm here in the Twin Cities area in Minnesota. And I would, first off, I'll tell you, if you're looking for an interior and architectural firm anywhere in the US, highly recommend them. They are an amazing firm. They do a phenomenal job of blending form and function. And I just couldn't recommend them more. So if you're looking, give Joyce a call. But the challenge that Joyce and her firm were facing is that there were a lot of administrative processes that were very manually intensive. And they really wanted to pull their people away and have them focus on more high value tasks. And they wanted in Joyce's word, one of her words I hear say all the time, fantastic. She wanted a more fantastic employee and client experience. And that's very much what we sought off to do. So there were a lot of things we did actually in the case study. One of them was really streamlining their proposal process. So what part of the challenge is they wanted to really streamline the coordination between different departments in the Microsoft 360, or excuse me, different departments across the company. And they wanted to leverage built-in integrations that existed within Microsoft 365. So a lot of people don't realize that like DocuSign and SharePoint have actually some built-in integrations and work really easily together. So taking advantage of some of those opportunities. And they also wanted to integrate the workflow outside of Microsoft 365 because not everything happens in 365. There's some really important third-party software that needs to exist in your environment. So that was really what we wanted to do, and part of what the solution we came back with. This is the before image of that workflow, and then this is the after image. So let me do that again. It's so satisfying to see all those boxes go away. And so there was a lot of streamlining of the workflow that we actually did. So we eliminated redundant work between project managers and marketing, reduced steps by 44%, and then automated a lot of the reminders and follow-ups, which took that burden off of the project managers. They had much bigger things they should be doing. The other thing we did, and there were, again, lots of different things we did, I'm just pulling out two specific things, is we improved the employee quarterly check-in. So if you are an EOS company, Joyce's firm runs on EOS. And in fact, Joyce is going to be on the stage with me next week at the EOS conference because we're doing a panel discussion with a couple clients. And so if you are familiar with EOS, you know it's called the 555 process. So for the rest of us, it's really just your employee quarterly check-in. So touching base, make sure they're happy. What we did is created a Power App for them, and it collected all that information into a SharePoint site. So it was centralized information. And the results from it, ironically, if you're talking about soliciting feedback from your client and your employees, if they're happy, it'd be nice for them to have an easy, convenient tool to use with that process. And so that's exactly what we did. So the result, definitely happier employees across the board. And HR is super happy because everything is consolidated in one central spot for them actually to see. Then what we do with case studies, we always provide an ROI. And so the ROI for this case study, and again, this is in the chat feature, in the chat, there's links to this case study. So the investment overall was around $20,000. Again, there was a lot more actually that we were working on with the firm. Ongoing cost is zero. This is the important thing about Microsoft 365. You basically pay somebody to help you configure software, use the software, but you don't have an ongoing subscription. And that's what makes Microsoft 365 so attractive. For just the proposal process alone, again, just one of the pieces we worked on, again, reduced steps by 44%, automated 90% of the workflow. And what that did was reduce the turnaround time from 1 to 2 weeks to 1 to 3 days. So if you've been in business or you're in the sales role, you know there's always a lot of angst when there's any delay in a customer signing a contract or signing a proposal, because you run the risk they're going to go with somebody else, change their mind. So this was priceless to reduce that turnaround time. So they're getting things signed right when the client is happy and interested. So anyway, great work there. So, all right, Bruce, I will let you share and I will man
Sounds
the
good.
door. Perfect.
You see the screen okay?
Yes, looks great.
All right. So today we're going to talk a little bit about Microsoft Task Management and kind of the suite of tools, past, present, future, and kind of how what the use cases are for all of these different tools. I've kind of divided this up into personal task management and team tasks, and then some of the related tools, most of the related tools around larger projects. And obviously we can use task management in lots of different scenarios. Our teams can be large or small. They can be ongoing department or functional teams that persist and continue on, but can also be project teams that kind of come and go. So we really have a whole tool set here that we can use to address all these needs. So first of all, we've got personal tasks, and we kind of start off with Outlook, and kind of over the years have added OneNote to that, and also with a full integration. And then more recently, Microsoft added To Do, and To Do is really a mobile friendly and also kind of a very graphically rich user interface, kind of a more contemporary approach to personal task management. So Outlook tasks have actually been with us for a long time and actually are very robust. This came about when Microsoft replaced Microsoft Mail with Outlook, which back in the day was called a personal information manager, meaning that it did more than just email, added calendars, and in this case, tasks. And so that was back in with the release of Office 97, so quite a number of years ago, and continues to persist both in the desktop version as well as the web client version. And as I mentioned, it is a very robust just in and of itself. You can enter in start and due dates, the status of how you're doing with them, a priority, percent complete. Those things are all very nice when you get lots of tasks going and you want to filter and sort them, group them into different bunches. You can add reminders to make sure you don't forget. You can do repeating tasks. Maybe you've got some tasks that needs to be completed monthly. Add notes to it. A feature that I love, categories, being able to kind of bunch these into different categories. And even within Outlook, you can assign and share that to some external person, which is nice. We oftentimes think about tasks that we share out in the context of a team, and obviously that's very important. But even here within personal task management, I can share a task out. I mentioned that several years ago, OneNote came out and also came out with the ability to add a task right inside of the notes that you make. And this is nice because this is also just totally integrated with your Outlook tasks. So if you're over in OneNote and you're making some notes and you're like, oh, I got to make sure I do this, you can right there in OneNote add a task, and it automatically gets added to kind of your master task list over in Outlook. So you don't have to maintain those task lists in separate locations. So that integration is really nice, and I think just eminently practical, right? To be able to have those tasks visible wherever you happen to be. Back about, well, gosh, 10 years ago now, Microsoft acquired a company called Wunderlist, and Wunderlist started in Germany, won lots and lots of awards. Some of you that have been around for a while may have actually used this. It was the #1 personal task management app out there, both on Android and iOS. Very, very popular. When Microsoft acquired it, it had 13 million users. And so this was a kind of number one task management tool out there. And so after Microsoft acquired them, the product the Wunderlist app actually stayed around for a while. And for the next 2 years, that Wunderlist team, which Microsoft also acquired, it came with the company, they were tasked, no pun intended, to integrate to do with the whole Microsoft 365 environment. And so the back end got moved to Microsoft Azure to make it fully cloud-based. It got integrated from an Outlook perspective and an Exchange Online perspective. And they continued to iterate that to make sure that all of the features that were in the original Wunderlist app were now available in To Do. And eventually Wunderlist was closed down and just referred to To Do. This remains and still is a multi-platform app. So you can get this for Android or iOS. It's available. There's an app for Windows 10. You can get this on a web browser, on the Mac. Everywhere you have a screen, you can get the To Do app. And the big advantage with this is it's just a more contemporary user interface, right? So sometimes if you are using this from a phone, you want the best possible interface, and this just gives that capability to you. So To Do and Outlook tasks are fully baked together. So there's full synchronization there. Doesn't matter which app you're using, if you will, To Do or Outlook. You can maintain all of your tasks. You can update them. Everything that you do in one place automatically shows up in the other. There's full accessibility. All these are stored online. They're all accessible from every device, including mobile devices. So everywhere you go, you've got your tasks with you. There's also a functionality called My Day, which is very nice. Lets you see all of your upcoming, not only your upcoming tasks, but also your calendar events. So you can see all of that together. That also is visible from both To Do and Outlook. So you have good visibility into that. And from a task management, this remains full functional, just like the original Outlook. So you can do all of the functions you do in Outlook, including, once again, for me, being able to mark these as far as importance, due dates, categorizations, can filter sort on all those. So you got all of that capability in both different apps. And also retains all the reminders and notifications to hopefully help you stay on top of everything that you got going on. So that's kind of the personal task management tool. And I think the takeaway there is you just have a great user interface. All of that stuff is baked together, and the OneNote feature is also just wonderful to be able to take notes and see that inside of your personal tasks. Now, as soon as we get into teams, life gets a little more complicated, right? We always get a team together because A, one person can't do all the work, and B, one person doesn't have all the knowledge. So it's like, how do we solve that? We get a bunch of people together. And as soon as we do that, we divide and conquer, but now we need to keep track of who's doing what, right? Because we probably got some deadlines out there, got some schedules we need to maintain, and keep track of who's doing what from a work perspective. And so team task management has kind of some additional capability because there's also some additional needs there. And so historically, we've kind of had a couple of different ways in the Microsoft arena to solve that. Smaller teams would use a template right inside of SharePoint for a task list. And so I could keep track of those tasks there. Larger projects used Microsoft Project and kind of its subsequent iterations. And now we're kind of transitioning that to some newer, more contemporary apps. There's Microsoft Planner, which is kind of just universally used by teams. And then more recently, Planner Premium. For some of you that have kind of been in the know on some of these things, Planner Premium was originally called Project for the Web, and then got rebranded as Planner Premium. And basically is really Microsoft Planner with just some additional functionality. So let's take a look at this a little bit. So Microsoft's been in the project management, obviously with Outlook for a long time, but also from a business and team perspective. Back in the early 80s, there was an app called Project Manager. It was a DOS app, and Microsoft acquired that. Subsequently, applied a really nice GUI to it and on the Windows environment, and relaunched it, if you will, as Microsoft Project. For the following decade or so, they continued to just add more functionality to it. Critical path, resource management, seeing what people are doing, advanced scheduling, all of those kinds of functions that we kind of take for granted today. Eventually, that got integrated into the Office suite for better integration and user convenience. And then finally, Microsoft added a way to do multiple projects and added Project Server. So this at that point really became what we today call a project management office application to manage lots and lots of projects within the organization and to kind of take a look at those. Very important when you're trying to plan resources to see if people have capability and to also just look at scheduling from a capacity standpoint. So Project Server was around for quite a few years. Eventually, as SharePoint went online, Microsoft actually moved Project Server into SharePoint Online, and that was kind of rebranded as Project Online. And Project Online also had a web app that was available for it called Project Web App. And so you could see that continued to just kind of march forward. At the same time, SharePoint came out. And so starting in 2003 with SharePoint V2, that really had a big enhancement versus V1. It was kind of a big rewrite. And so Microsoft added a bunch of templates in there so that you could do a SharePoint task list, kind of similar in many respects if you look at it to a simple Outlook task list that you might see over in Outlook. All the same kinds of fields and just being able to share that amongst a team. So this kind of addressed both the needs of a smaller team and of a larger team. And then as we march forward, we still have Project Online and Project Web App. That has not gone away. Microsoft is no longer iterating that forward, and so it's kind of just support only now. They have not said that it is fully deprecated, but we do anticipate that that's coming down the road, which means that they will have kind of an end of life on that. But this also means that there's kind of this transition period. So about the same time, Microsoft was developing Microsoft Planner and bringing that into kind of the Microsoft 365 world. And that was primarily for smaller teams. And then eventually they came out with Planner Premium, which basically is Planner on steroids and just adds a bunch of functionality so that we can better address some of the larger projects. And instead of having everything all baked into a single app like we do with Project, Microsoft is taking advantage of some of the things that they already own, in particular the Power Platform. And so we'll take a look at a couple of those things as well. So nowadays we really have a planner with a very modern user interface, being able to look at all of our tasks in a grid or some kind of a board, a Kanban board or a chart. We can filter and group those. We can take a look at the tasks assigned to me. And by the way, all the tasks from Planner that are assigned to you can also be viewed in To Do. So now To Do becomes this window of not only personal tasks, but team tasks that are assigned to you. And hopefully that won't freak you out when you look at that and see all the work you got to do. But it is very convenient to have everything in one place, right? And every one of these tasks has a checklist, a subtask, I guess you could call it. Lets you add notes to it. You can have conversations as a team around these and attach other content or make other references as well. Planner Premium kind of just ups the ante on this, and really Planner Premium looks just like Planner, except it has, you'll see additional functionality there. And I think that's huge for an organization, right? If you get an organization that just standardly can manage their tasks with Planner, it's so nice if you get into a larger project and you're using Planner Premium, because right from the get-go, people know what's going on, right? They know how to use the app. And so now it's just some of these additional features. So here in Planner Premium, we've got, I won't go through all these, but a couple of them. There's a Gantt chart for the timeline and task dependencies. We can add things from an agile perspective, so we can do backlogs and sprints. We can look at some additional calendaring capabilities to be able to keep track of all this. And additionally, we now have Microsoft 365 Copilot, which can help us deal with all of the work that we do in Planner. So once again, just kind of taking task management up a notch. And I mentioned there's some other things that we do to kind of augment that from to kind of get back to parity with all the different things that Microsoft Project used to do. And so we can track issues and risks in SharePoint lists. Some people also track that, by the way, in Planner, and you can do that as well. But there's templates out there for a SharePoint list to track issues and risks, to track status on a weekly or more often basis, to take a look at the budget and how that's progressing, to track changes that you have to the project, and then also to address kind of maybe outlier kinds of tasks that really don't fit kind of that traditional model, because you can still create a SharePoint list and do any kind of a list you want. And so you could take all of those standard task fields and fully augment those. Planner Premium does let you do customized tasks as well, but sometimes for really niche kinds of scenarios, you could also continue to go back to a SharePoint list. So this is really kind of filling in all the other things that are associated with a project, and taking care of that from a team perspective. And then I mentioned the Power Platform. So these are functions that were kind of in play in Microsoft Project, and now we're really just leveraging the power of the Power Platform. So we can automate a lot of different things from a workflow perspective, do things from a reporting standpoint. I'm going to show you that in just a second. Creating custom forms or views, or perhaps even sharing out portions of this project to external folks, right? Partners, clients, vendors, those kinds of people. So lots of different ways to kind of extend what we've got going on in projects. Here's a Microsoft Teams. And so if we're managing a project, just like if we're managing our own department team, we would probably do things right here. And this is nice because of the fact that I can organize my project within Teams and keep all of those things I talked about, tasks, but also statuses, risks and issues, changes, everything that I might have relating to that project all in one window. And I mentioned Power BI. Here's a couple of different screens where I can take a look at overall how we're doing from a task perspective. If we're managing lots of different projects in a portfolio, those could be sub-projects of a larger project, or could just be flat out multiple different projects. I could take a look at how all of these projects are tracking together. I can look at all my resources and what kind of capacity I have across all these projects, and also take a look at how people are being assigned. So really from a team task perspective, I think this has gotten way more robust compared to project. At the same time, also very simplified. And so that's kind of a win-win. We can augment these things with SharePoint and the list functionality, additionally the Power Platform, and then stick all of that stuff in Teams so that it's super convenient, super handy, all together, all functioning and working kind of as one. So really that's kind of, we've got lots of tasks in our lives, got a bunch of a portfolio here of different apps that we can use to accomplish the management of all of these tasks. And so just wanted to make you aware of that. And if you got any questions, continue to chime in here. We'll answer some of those at the end.
Awesome. Bruce, you had a ton of questions, which is great. It means great content. So I'm going to wrap up on a couple slides here. We're going to start with letting Beth ask her question. She's been patiently waiting. But
Okay.
yeah, but if you want to peruse through the Q&A, or excuse me, through the chat and look at some of those questions, and then you can
Will do.
you can answer them when we hit Q&A. So I'll just wrap up really quick. So a lot of times people stumble upon our webinars on YouTube and they're like, who the heck is this company? And what do they do? So just really quickly, sorry, am I sharing? Yes, perfect. So depending on where you are in your Microsoft 365 journey, we might step in at a different point. You might have a really good foundation set up and you might want to just be exploring Copilot, Microsoft's AI tool, or Power Automate or something. And so we would step in more at this optimized phase. But for some companies, we're starting all the way at the beginning, making sure they have the foundation set up properly. Our goal ultimately is to augment your current IT staff. And so to come in, really do everything because we're Microsoft 365 experts, and then really wrap up and leave and make sure everybody's trained and knows how to handle what they're doing. We have lots of strategies that we follow to try and really help with the adoption of the software. One in particular is around what we call rules of engagement. There's a million different ways to configure everything in Microsoft, but it's really important that companies come up with a specific way your company's going to use 365 so it's consistently understood and followed by everybody. And so think of it as like your operations manual, or how are you going to use the platform. You would define that first before really training end users on how to use the platform. So just a reminder again, our webinars, and I'll enter into chat when I get done talking. Our next webinar is on May 13th. Again, register even if the date doesn't work for you, because it's actually, you'll get a recording of it. And that's going to be focused on how to integrate 90IO into the Teams environment. 90IO is an EOS tool, but really it's for any time you want to integrate third-party software into the Teams environment. It might be of interest for you to attend the webinar. And I will stop sharing. So Beth, did you have a question? Because you raised your hand earlier. Are you okay?
No, I'm good. For some reason my mouse was stuck over the top of that and I couldn't get it undone. So I apologize for that. But
You
no,
kept raising it, and I'm like, well, we'll get to you.
No, my mouse was stuck. So I apologize. We're good. Thank you though.
It's all good. So Bruce, did you get a chance to look through the questions in chat, or do you want me to read them to you?
Yeah. So one of the questions was, can you add labels from the To-Do app? I found I can only add labels if they originated Outlook. So you actually can. There is a limitation to this. The mobile apps currently do not let you add categories to them, but that's actually on the roadmap and will be kind of remedied in the near future. You can, though, in the To-Do app for Windows or the Mac, you can add categories in there. So stay tuned on that one. Can you get Project Planner as an app and not in the web browser? So Planner is a web-based app, as a lot of Microsoft 365 apps are. And so there is not a thick client app for Planner currently. So do you have tips and tricks on how to use to-do lists from a naming convention, labeling, etc.? Yeah, so I personally organize my tasks around several different things. I organize them personal versus business. On the business side, I guess kind of on the personal side too, but especially on the business side, these are my personal tasks. And so I organize those according to some different categories that I've set up. So it's either kind of corporate or project based. And I actually have some breakdowns on that. I also organize some of these things by due date. And I always use due dates because I think it drives me to try to get these things done. But the other thing is I really like to be able to create views where I can see things by kind of three-dimensionally, right? So I can, the one nice thing is you can group these by different things. So you can group them by due dates or by categories. And so it's nice if you use that information because it gives you some of these different views. And I would encourage you, I mean, especially on the personal side, but I think maybe also on the team side to play around with this a little bit and kind of see what works best for you. Try some different things and ditto on teams. Once again, I mentioned we just kind of fundamentally have two different kinds of teams. These persistent teams that are departments or functional units that don't ever disappear, right? It's our group, it's our team, it's who we work with. And so you got that kind of team, and then you also have project teams. But a lot of times projects can either be smaller projects or larger projects. And so I would encourage you, especially on the project side, I think as a department, if people don't like the way things are being organized and categorized, people will speak up. It's like, hey, what if we did this instead? I think sometimes on the projects, you kind of have to play around with that a little bit, right? As you get a larger project doing with more people involved, doing more work, sometimes you need to think about really how that's organized so that it kind of becomes optimal for folks to get around and kind of use some of that stuff. Another question, can you review how the assign to me from Planner can be viewed in To Do? If you open up the To Do app, there's in settings, there's a function, and it's just a toggle switch, and you can turn it on, and then the planner tasks assigned to you just automatically show up. So super, super simple. Go to To Do, go to settings. There's not a ton of settings in that app. And if you just look through it, you'll find it. It's just a toggle switch. Is there an easy way to convert meetings in Outlook to tasks? Yeah, actually, you can literally just take a meeting off your calendar. And if you're looking at Outlook in the folder view where you're seeing all the different folders, you literally can just drag your appointment over to tasks, and it'll automatically populate a new task, including the due date, which happens to be the date of the appointment. And then you can continue to edit it if you need to and just save it automatically in your task list.
Awesome. Good job, Bruce. If you have more questions, feel free to unmute or enter into chat. And Bruce, I'll go ahead and ask a couple questions. Is there any difference with how task management works with classic Outlook versus new Outlook?
Not really. Those are pretty similar in the view. The new Outlook is once again kind of incorporating that more contemporary look and feel. But that's true of the whole app. And so in that regard, it looks a little bit more like To Do. But I think everything you'll be at home with there and be able to recognize all the functionality and the functions. So
awesome. And then one last question. You talked about Planner Premium having some additional features. Maybe you covered it and I missed it, but what are some of those additional features that Planner Premium has above Basic Planner?
Yeah, so I think some of the real core ones are the fact that you can see a Gantt chart, which is very important. You can have tasks that are dependent on one another. So if I say, oh, this task is going to end on today, the 25th, and tomorrow I have a task that starts and that task is dependent on today's task. If I don't get it done by the 25th, by today, I maybe need to move today's task out a couple days, right, from an end standpoint. And my dependent task will also then, its begin date will move out automatically. And so if I'm managing a large project, that lets me kind of see all these dependencies and kind of keep those tasks going. Planner Premium is also for those of you that do sprints or agile. It's more conducive, has some functionality that relates to that, right? So, but I think at the end of the day, the big ones that people always talk about are the fact that I have a Gantt chart, which gives me a better view for looking at kind of tasks collectively, and I can do dependent tasks and kind of link those together. So I think those are kind of some of the real key ones. By the way, I have a slide in there in the deck. So if if you guys have some questions on that, we're gonna make sure you get a copy of today's presentation, so you could kind of look at that a little bit more too. And if you just go to Planner out in Microsoft 365, they've in several places there's a comparison chart that shows Planner versus Planner Premium. So.
Perfect. And we'll send a copy of the recording. You won't necessarily get the slides, but you'll get a copy of the recording so you can kind of pause on that slide along the way. Bruce, there are a couple more questions entered. Melissa's asking, can you get Project Planner as an app and not in a web browser?
Yeah, so that's the one. Currently, it is a web-based app only, and so there's not a thick client for Planner or for Planner Premium. I see another one here. Is there an easy way to convert emails in Outlook to tasks? I think the previous question was appointments, right? Calendar appointments. But this is the same answer. You literally in Outlook can just drag your email onto the task icon in Outlook, and it'll automatically copy that content into a task, and you can assign a due date and things like that.
Awesome. I think we got to all the questions. Anybody have, you're welcome to unmute if you'd prefer to ask it or enter into chat. This was awesome, Bruce. A lot changing. I love that you know the history. You've been hanging out with Microsoft for a few years, Bruce.
Too long, yeah.
Hey, to build upon Bruce's points there that he just made, one feature I have used for years, and it's awesome, and probably use it more often, is if you get an email saying, hey, we need to meet, or suggest that we need a meeting, if you just drag that email to your calendar, it pops up a new appointment, but also the text of the email, so that all the background is included in the appointment.
These are such great examples of the integration within 365. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, people ask, I just had a call earlier with somebody who's on Google, and I'm like, okay, you might not trust me because we're Microsoft experts, but it's the integration that just, yeah, leave Google. That's my message.
Arnie, it's interesting that you mentioned that too, because Outlook's obviously been around for a long time, right? And is a very mature product. And it is a product that has lots of different things going on in it, obviously, right? Email, task management, calendaring. And sometimes we don't realize all the inner workings of how all these things work together. And the thing that you just mentioned, Arnie, I just had somebody yesterday that brought that up and said, you know, we need to do some training on Outlook.
Yes.
Because there's so many people that don't know all these kind of little nuanced things in Outlook, right? And we just kind of use all these core things and don't realize the extra kind of functionality that's there. So
yeah,
and
exactly. Yeah, people come into the workplace and you assume that, oh, everybody's used computers, everybody knows enough to be proficient, and they don't.
Yep, that's
So,
right.
yeah.
And Jan, to your point, I think that is one of the things. I mean, Microsoft does make a lot of products, and one of the things that I always appreciate is the level to which they integrate these, and that is truly a value proposition for Microsoft customers, right? The fact that this stuff is just baked together like right out of the box, and we kind of sometimes take that for granted as well. So
yeah, so true. Well, I think we're done. I'm not seeing any more questions coming through. So thank you everybody for joining. Bruce, this was excellent. Thank you for taking the time to prepare and do it.
Thank you.
And have a good day, everybody. And we'll see you in May for our next webinar. And forward the recording onto your boss if you feel like you need some help in your organization leveraging 365. So